listen to the Antichrist. If we hope to beat him, we cannot only try to be like Jesus, we need to be like God.
While I'm certainly one of the bigger bastions of bravery here in What Culture Gaming, I've been getting the fear put all up in me with Red Barrel's spooky sequel Outlast 2. As you may well remember from the first in this series, this is a developer who knows how to craft suspenseful and downright scary moments. But is this game a tour de force of terror or something that's more crap than creepy? Well, let's find out. I'm Jules for WhatCulture.com and here's our full review for Outlast 2. If I was to say the words hillbilly religious cult, strange abominations, and a big evil man who calls himself Daddy, you might think I was talking about Resident Evil 7. But these are also features which make up the backbone of Outlast 2. But fear not, for besides these similarities, Outlast 2 is its own beast entirely. You play as Blake Langerman, a reporter who's investigating the murder of a woman and her child. It appears that she's come from a remote area of a forest that's nearby, and after you crash into the region, it's up to you to save your partner, uncover the evil, and hopefully avoid getting licked by this strange chap. But licking is just the tip of this gory iceberg, as Outlast 2 is perhaps the most sexually aggressive title I've witnessed since the Silent Hill games, and that is a big compliment. To see horror elements tied to sexual disease, molestation, and just sheer disgust like this creates such a powerful theme. And while it would be odd for me to use the phrase love when talking about people being forcefully bred with by an overweight cult leader oozing with syphilis, it sure does make for some powerful storytelling. The writing itself is extremely solid, feeding you seamlessly through the main story while also offering a branching sub-story of what happened in Blake's past and his involvement in the death of one of his classmates. Adding to this are a bevy of collectibles which add further depth to the characters or the hauntingly insane Temple Gate settlement you find yourself in. As a result, there's a lot of information flying at the player, and sometimes what with all the scares going on, you can miss certain bits. Luckily, the game knows where its main narrative spikes are and forces the player to pay attention to them, meaning that even if you are slightly confused or feel like you've not grasped why you're going to X location, the blanks are soon filled in. In short, it's an engaging story and kept my interest for the entire duration of the game. When talking about the presentation of the game, there are highs and lows, but they might not bother most gamers. For the majority, the game looks fantastic. Well, as much as a dead horse or a bunch of burning bodies can look fantastic, that is. The environments are varied and range from cornfields to derelict houses to underground labyrinths and all drip with a lived-in vibe. Lighting is used in a fantastic way, contrasting complete pitch black with dull fires or fading light bulbs in the woodland areas and harsh fluorescent lights in the school sections. It constantly enforces that there's something hiding in the dark, and there usually is, while also offering the player a clear path of where to go to next. The audio work in Outlast 2 is equally disturbing, ranging from full-blown action pieces when being chased or spooked, to off-kilter and dissonant violin scratches that add to the tension. The camera in the game is also equipped with a microphone, which helps you locate enemies behind doors. And when this is switched on, everything around you is dulled so you can focus on that directional mic. With a set of headphones on, this creates some of the most tense moments in the game, as you're listening out for the inconsistent breathing of unseen baddies who are just inches away from you. An important decision was made at Red Barrels when they announced that the game would not support VR, and I totally stand by their decision. Outlast 2 contains a kinetic energy that VR would struggle to get across properly, and the whipping camera would have likely caused people to lose their lunch. And trust me, this is definitely not a title which wants you to stay still for long. The constant pressure to run is writ large upon this game, as there are many more enemies present in the world and they are much more intelligent and determined than their previous outing. Giving your pursuers ample speed and weapons is bad enough, but having them be able to crawl after you through gaps only adds to the trauma. The level design in Outlast is something to be commended, as across the 6 to 7 hour campaign, there's not only a huge amount of variety in locales, but a really clever use of space. I was really worried when I saw that there was going to be a shift from confined spaces to open woods and villages, as I felt the horror element might be diluted if the developer can't guarantee players will be in the right place to see specific events. Luckily, Red Barrels has implemented some clever touches to keep players not only moving, but moving in the right direction. Enemy placement will direct players where to go or not to go when sprinting through woods, and lights will indicate where to aim for. And both are done so well that often I thought I was just exploring a secret area only for it to end up being exactly where the developers wanted me to be. Your camera is pretty much your only ally in this game, allowing you to see in the dark, zoom in to scope out locations, and provides you with the means of recording events which can be viewed later for extra information. location. But she is a fickle little beast and chews through batteries like a cannibal going through your sternum. This lovely relationship between trying to survive and locating enough supplies to even see where you're going is fantastically implemented. I found that I never really ran out of juice, but the placements of the batteries were just far enough to make me feel a real sense of dread that I might. But the game isn't perfect. The main problem comes from the fact that it's based around surviving encounters by the skin of your teeth, and sometimes you won't. This does hamper the horror aspect a little bit, as an event that was initially terrifying is far less so after the 8th or 9th time. But you know what? This game gets so much right that it's easy to look beyond this issue. In fact, it's one of the only horror games I've played where backtracking isn't a staple. You're constantly moving forward and exploring unfamiliar locations, which keeps the tension constant as a result. You're never allowed to stop, and you're never truly at home with your surroundings. So here are 3 things that you need to know about Outlast 2. Number 1. Be prepared to witness a lot of disturbing things. From stabbings to crucifixions and all manner of torture in between, Outlast 2 displays its gore card proudly. However, it's in its sexual content that this game really stamps out its own horrific identity. The obsession with fornication and killing babies is something as shocking as it is refreshing in horror games, and will make you squirm with discomfort many times throughout the length of the game. Number 2. The game feels extremely competent to control. All of the scares in the game would be for naught if Blake didn't handle well, but the game makes it clear very early on that he's able to do a fair few things. He can jump, crawl, lock doors, and even swing his head round to see who's chasing him, which for the record is terrifying. Switching between camera modes is easy, and there's a clear visual indicator for how many supplies you have left. It's basically a perfect example of making a player-controlled character feel competent even though they can't attack. And number 3, this game is scary. Now, I know that horror is subjective and what might have scared me might not have affected you and vice versa, but I found there to be many moments of pure terror laced throughout Outlast 2. It's down to its split narrative more than anything, with the woodlands and the school playing out very differently. In the forests and mines, it's about escape, about picking your moment and running as fast as you can. But in the school settings, the developer can build a lot more suspense. You're fed scares in a way that only a linear experience can, and it feels very PT in places, which if you've ever played it, is a very good thing. And that's Outlast 2, a game which assaults decency and body parts in equal measure. It's given me some of the most adrenal rushes in a game to date as I darted through dead-end woods and built fear in me unparalleled with its haunted hallways. It is so easy for me to recommend this game as it's got everything you could want from a horror title.
Consume the flesh, as fast as well. Let the bones be burned.
And the countenance of an angel of will be behold.